Trayvon Martin was a 17-year-old African-American high school student living in Miami Gardens, Florida. In February 2012, he was visiting his father, Tracy Martin, in Sanford, Florida. On the 26th, Trayvon was walking home from 7-Eleven in a hoodie with Skittles and a sweet tea in hand. When he entered the gated community where he was staying, the retreat at Twin Lakes, neighborhood watch officer George Zimmerman saw him. He began to follow Trayvon and called the police. Zimmerman said he saw a real suspicious guy and thought that Trayvon was on drugs and planning to break into houses. Trayvon began running and Zimmerman followed, despite the dispatcher saying, "We don't need you to do that." Zimmerman got out of his SUV, confronted Martin, and the two got in some sort of altercation. Trayvon asked why he was following him, and George replied with, "What are you doing around here?" Neighbors heard someone cry for help and then a gunshot. Zimmerman had shot Trayvon in the chest at 7:16 p.m. Police arrived 2 minutes later, and at 7:30 p.m., Trayvon was pronounced dead. Zimmerman was taken to the police station with wounds in the back of his head and nose. He pleaded self-defense and was released. He was never found guilty. This chain of events sparked national controversy and debates about racial profiling. Some view Trayvon as the victim, while others see Zimmerman playing that role. CNN's Trayvon Martin Shooting Fast Facts is a timeline of events that is supportive of Zimmerman and attempts to justify his actions. They mention Trayvon's race and that the reason he was visiting his father was because he was suspended for the discovery of drug residue in Martin's book bag. However, when introducing Zimmerman, they exclude his race and talk about his education at Seminole State College and his leadership role in the community as neighborhood watch captain. Trayvon has been portrayed as a stereotypical black teenager who is violent and thuggish, while Zimmerman is portrayed as a responsible adult. As the article continues, they repeat his duty of neighborhood watch captain to soften the blow that he killed a teenage boy. After that, Trayvon is only mentioned when necessary. They go on to depict Zimmerman as the victim, saying he had open wound of the scalp without mention of complication, nasal bones, close fracture, assault by other means. They mention that George is a Hispanic and grew up in a multiracial family, saying that he is being unfairly portrayed as a racist, which is justificational diction. When it is stated in the article that it's believed Zimmerman used a racial slur in the tape of his call to the police, the results are inconclusive, follows, as if to say, "Don't worry, it may not have actually happened." When it's mentioned that Zimmerman's family spoke in the court or to the public, quotes are used to defend Zimmerman. Zimmerman's father, Robert, appears on television and says that Martin threatened to kill Zimmerman and then beat him so badly that Zimmerman was forced to shoot. Zimmerman's brother, Robert Zimmerman Jr., appears on CNN and says medical records will prove that his brother was attacked and his nose was broken by Trayvon Martin before he fatally shot the teen. But when it's said that Martin's family took the stand, their voices are not heard. Martin's family speak at the meeting. FBI agents interview Martin's girlfriend. But what did they say? They do this to give Zimmerman's side of the story and to justify his actions, and don't give Trayvon's family's side because they don't want you to know any information that could make Zimmerman the antagonist. The source also uses many short and simple sentences, which can mean they're unreliable and leaving information out. It is mentioned that April 20th, 2012, Zimmerman apologizes to the family of Trayvon Martin for the loss of their son. This is to make the audience sympathize with him and to show that he takes responsibility for his actions. However, the word loss makes it seem like the death wasn't tragic or his fault. Zimmerman also says in an interview on July 18, 2012, that he wouldn't do anything differently, implying that he's had time to reflect and still thinks that what he did is not wrong and that Trayvon is to blame. Bio.com sheds a different light on Trayvon. According to their biography on him, he was athletic, wanted to be a pilot, and had no criminal record before he was killed. This breaks the African-American stereotype that is believed to be the reason he was shot. They talk about his background and education further, saying he had experiences that included skiing, horseback riding, and a trip to New York City to take in the sights. The youngster took an English honors class, though his favorite subject was said to be math, and, tall and athletically inclined with tattoos of his family members on his frame, the often quiet Martin was highly interested in studying aviation and becoming a pilot. This characterizes Trayvon as a smart, successful young adult with love for his family and for his life. The use of the word youngster is to emphasize the fact that his life was short-lived. Bio.com does this to make the reader mourn for him and the life that he had, making them angry with Zimmerman. They mention Trayvon was close to his father who he was visiting, and that his parents wanted to expose him to the world, which makes him seem like an innocent and loving kid. When it comes to Zimmerman, Bio.com portrays him as the criminal. They say, Zimmerman had called police several times to state he'd seen individuals whom he had deemed suspicious. All of the reported figures were black males. The word deemed shows that they may not have seemed suspicious to anyone besides Zimmerman. This indicates that he's racist. Why hasn't he called for whites, or any other race? Bio.com says it is believed Zimmerman never identified himself as part of the community watch, which implies that he had no place to wonder what Trayvon was doing walking around the neighborhood, and confronted him not for the neighborhood, but for himself. They say Zimmerman shot the unarmed teenager, and Trayvon died less than 100 yards from where he was staying. This makes the audience sympathize with Martin and his family and ask themselves, how could this happen? Yards could be used instead of another measurement, like feet, to make the number smaller and make the incident seem more tragic. The biography also says video footage of Trayvon buying his Skittles and Arizona tea before the incident showed no aggressive or criminal behavior, and he was on the phone with his 16-year-old girlfriend while walking in the neighborhood and the line disconnected moments before Martin was killed. This makes Zimmerman the antagonist because he killed a nice teen boy who had previously purchased tea and candy, which symbolizes innocence and youth in this case. The public took to Twitter with diverse opinions. Michael Moore wrote, "Had a gun-toting Trayvon Martin stalked an unarmed George Zimmerman and then shot him to death, do I even need to complete this sentence?" This is a rhetorical question with the obvious answer that the verdict would be different and Trayvon would be automatically guilty if the roles were reversed because of black stereotypes. The ellipses and capital letters indicate an upset tone, and gun-toting and stalked are negative diction. Others feel differently. Ben Shapiro wrote, "Trayvon Martin would have turned 21 today if he hadn't taken a man's head and beaten it on the pavement before being shot." This is a story with a beginning and ending, the start being him injuring Zimmerman and the consequence being his death. From Shapiro's tweet, with a sassy tone and negative diction from words like taken and beaten, we're supposed to learn that Trayvon did this to himself, and Zimmerman was only saving his life. Ben Shapiro is obviously on Zimmerman's side, making him the protagonist and Trayvon the antagonist. 6 days after Zimmerman was found not guilty, Obama gave a speech about racial profiling in the George Zimmerman trial. It was widely covered in the media, and the most frequently used phrases from the speech are, "Trayvon Martin could have been me 35 years ago," and, "If I had a son, he looked like Trayvon." This in itself became a controversy. Some thought Obama was genuine, while others thought the opposite. Cartoonist Gary McGoy is one of many who was upset with the president. A cartoon he made is on Kaggle.com, showing Obama pretend to be sympathetic for the media, but on the side say, "Can you guys get a good shot? How's the lighting?" Author of this article, Daryl Kaggle, titled "Cartoonist Criticizes Obama for Politicizing Trayvon Martin Murder," quotes cartoonist Gary McGoy. "What we have here is our country's most narcissistic president ever, unable to keep from making every major story about him if at all possible, unless it's high gas prices, a still sluggish economy, high unemployment, etc. Narcissistic is very negative diction, and most and ever are really emphasizing the fact that he's all about himself. Unless it's high gas prices, a still sluggish economy, high unemployment, etc. are in parentheses. McGoy is being witty, but at the same time bashing the president for not taking responsibility for these things." Later on, McGoy says, "Yes, Mr. President, we know you're black, half black technically, but really, what's your point? Mr. Let's all come together and not make race an issue can't seem to keep from waving his giant, novelty, double-laminated race card whenever he smells political opportunism wafting in the air. Calling him this is mocking him, and words like giant, novelty, double-laminated are very tedious and are making the race card seem like a very literal thing, symbolizing irresponsibility." McGoy has a very sassy tone in both of these quotes, and from them the audience is supposed to take away that Obama is the villain and should not have spoke about Trayvon this way. Others feel differently. Washington Post posted an article saying, "The president's decision Friday to assertively insert himself into the controversy surrounding the fatal shooting of Trayvon Martin, a black Florida 17-year-old, is evidence of Obama's evolution and rising comfort level in dealing with the matter of race. The word assertively shows how important the issue is to the president, and Washington Post may have done this to prove to the reader that Obama was strong in his stance and cares about Trayvon and other black citizens. Evolution and rising comfort is positive diction that also helps portray Obama as a good guy." Zimmerman made headlines again in May of 2016 when he decided to auction the gun he used to kill Trayvon. He said, "I am honored and humbled to announce the sale of an American firearm icon. The firearm for sale is the firearm that was used to defend my life and end the brutal attack from Trayvon Martin, and I am proud to announce that a portion of the proceeds will be used to fight Black Lives Matter violence against law enforcement officers and fight Hillary Clinton's anti-firearm rhetoric. This is a piece of American history," he said. A video posted to YouTube by user The Young Turks definitely thinks Zimmerman is the antagonist. With an angry tone, they describe him with words like disgusting pig, unbearable, and monster several times, which is negative diction. They refer to the auction saying, "Even if you think Zimmerman is 100% right, and God help you if you do, is that still something to celebrate?" This is a rhetorical question with a clear answer of no, it's not. The gun is symbolizing racism here because Zimmerman is, in their words, celebrating the death of a black person he supposedly killed in self-defense. And God help you if you do is saying that you shouldn't think Zimmerman is right and that he's not the victim in this situation. They say all he cares about is being in the press, getting attention, and making money from it, in an irritated tone, making Zimmerman seem like he's all about himself and not concerned about the feelings of Trayvon's loved ones. Zimmerman began trending on Twitter, and shortly after the gun was put up for sale. @RobbieDigital7 wrote, "Why are you guys mad at the Zimmerman guy for selling his gun? Words like this and guy make Zimmerman seem like an average person, and he has a confused tone. From the suite, it's gathered that Zimmerman should be able to sell a gun like anyone else, and it's not that big of a deal. In the end, there is never one side to any story. People take what they want from events and turn it into scenarios, which is what makes them so compelling. Some sources concerning the shooting of Trayvon Martin made him seem like the protagonist or good guy, while others made him seem like the antagonist or bad guy. The same is true with every event. Make sure you know all sides of the story and from all kinds of people.